Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. We are so excited to see all your faces and be joining over virtually this time around. Today, we're going to be given a brief, I'm just going to give a brief overview of today's agenda. So we're going to be first discussing some problems of practices in different sessions. So we're going to discuss ideas and strategies to recruit students and learners to technology programs and pathways. We'll have two breakout rooms, and I'm hoping that there'll be really fruitful discussions that will help you all in these areas. I want to take an opportunity now and give a special thank you to Jonathan Gowan, who is the Director of Tuition Break at NEVI, at the New England Board of Higher Education. And he is joining us today for this first session, and he will share with us his expertise in admissions. So I'm hoping that that will lead to a very fruitful discussion, as I said. And later we will have a panel with speakers from EY, US Chamber of Commerce, Foundation, and Aon. And the goal of the panel is for you to gain insight and inspiration as you create your work-based learning opportunities with your employer partners. So to get us started, I'm just gonna quickly give you a little bit of a breakdown of kind of how the breakout discussion will go. And then we'll kind of break out into breakout rooms and just we have leads. So I'll just go over the breakout discussion. So as you all know, a common challenge in this work can be recruiting students into course for a specific program and pathway that you have developed. So in this session, we will break out into groups to discuss this problem practice from two perspectives. So there's the recruitment of degree-seeking students, and then there's recruitment of incumbent employers. So you will be given an opportunity to discuss these challenges and brainstorm solutions. The degree-seeking student recruitment discussion will be facilitated by Dr. Mehdi Makini from the University of New Haven, and the incumbent employee discussion will be facilitated by Julie Demers from the University of Bridgeport. Each group will be given 30 minutes to discuss, and then we will share a few takeaways when we return to the larger group. So the leads for each will be facilitated. They have directions of kind of how we're going to do. Right now in the slides, we have the suggested breakout rooms that we believe that might be most helpful to you given your programs, but I'm going to open up the breakout rooms and you can decide which area you kind of want to focus on for the next 30 minutes. Welcome back, everyone. I hope that your conversations were very fruitful and you guys had good discussions. I wanted to kind of open up the room and just kind of hear a little bit about some of the highlights that you all got from that conversation. So if anyone from breakout room 1 wants to start us off.
I can do it if you want me to. So we didn't go far, unfortunately, probably because we had quite a few, opinions and suggestions that we discussed. So our topic was about, the degree-seeking students, how they can benefit from the programs, courses that the projects intend or target. And we didn't go down all the topic that I had in mind to discuss with the audience, unfortunately, for lack of time. But we were able to identify a few strategies with respect to how we recruit those students. And we talked a little bit about information sessions. We talked about classroom visits. We talked about how we call it, clubs or extracurricular activities on campus that you can leverage in order to reach to those students and talk to them. Other participants mentioned also the use of digital media, posters, flyers, and some other faculty also leveraged not the technology aspect, but the learning management system in order for them to use that as a way to drop and share announcement about the programs and for other teachers to also relay the message to those students. As far as the challenges and barriers that we faced with respect to the program, there were some, let's say, institution specific. We talked about institution where they are moving away from initiative led by a single faculty, as it becomes kind of a I'm going to coin a term from computing, single point of failure, but it's not failure actually, which means like one person, if that person leaves, that program basically fall apart, and we don't have the expertise to teach it. So being that champion in your institution, trying to do that on your own, the only faculty sometimes might raise some red flags at the administrative level, as they want to see redundancy of skills and competencies to take over that program should you change or your career takes you somewhere else. We talked about opportunities to also have resources to recruit and to grow those programs, and we learned that one of our grantee also landed a new grant in order to help with the recruitment effort on the TTA project that she's conducting. So congratulations. And yeah, that's pretty much how far we have been with respect. So we talked about the recruitment techniques, strategies, what worked, what didn't work, and what things could be leveraged. We talked also about the importance to use the resources of the university in terms of career centers, career development, student success services, Center for CLR, Center for Learning Resources. Yeah. So, it's important to know what your university offers and to leverage them in order for you to properly execute your program. That was basically the main outcomes of our discussion room.
Thank you, Mehdi. Thank you so much for sharing. If anyone else wants to just add anything to that. Okay. No, I think that was a great summary. It was very helpful to know. If breakout room 2, if anyone wants to jump in, or Julie, if you want to leave that just recap.
Yes. Thank you. So we were able to get through all 5 of our questions, and it was because of the flow. I think a lot of our experienced grantees, Karen from Mitchell College and Fred from Quinnipiac University, really shared the strategies that are working in their context. And then we allowed to hear from our newbie, who was also saying that, these are things that they're working out. So our task was to talk about our strategies to get incumbent workers into our programs. And I was very fortunate to have our partner, Cherie Griffin-Dunn, who is the CEO of her company, talking about how it was a nice match for us. Unfortunately, not everybody has access to CEOs, right? And so we were talking about strategies of with us all using Handshake, who is the right person to speak to so that we can increase the messaging out to those employers who need to hire for cybersecurity, for health. And so, that's one of the challenges, is to be able to get the right person to make the connection so that we can say, we have your students who are willing to do the work, and we can then transition them into the company. Karen or Fred, if you want to unmute, is there any other takeaway you want to share from our group?
I think the theme that I heard was there's no magic strategies, that we're all building something new and creating new spaces. And so just being out there on the ground or digitally meeting people, and it's just the work. I don't think we kind of found a silver bullet.
I can unmute too. I think it's just what Karen said and Julie said. I think it's really defining where your prospective students are. And I think we talked about alums. In our case, in Quinnipiac, we have a variety of schools, like we have health sciences, we have a medical school, and as well as the business partners. So I think it's having your basic message, but then refining it for each of those groups and what's in it for them. That's what we're trying to do this year anyhow.
So now I'm going to pass it off to Candace Williams, the Director of Regional Initiatives at BHEF, who's going to lead the panel discussion.
Thanks, Laura. Thanks for the great discussion, Group 1. I'm excited to read the notes from Breakout Group 2 later on. So we're going to jump into our panel discussion. Over the last few months, we've discussed a spectrum of partnership activities that we encourage TTA participants to consider when designing new or enhancing existing tech training programs and partnerships. We've talked about academic collaborations focused on curriculum. We've talked about hiring commitments, student engagement, as well as experiential or work-based learning, which will be the focus of our panel. We've invited some experts, BHEF's partners in Chicago and Texas, to explore strategies, challenges, and successes that they experience integrating real-world experiences into educational initiatives. So I'll do a quick introduction of our panelists, and then before we start the discussion, we'll put up a very short Zoom poll that's meant to do a little bit of level setting about where we all see experiential learning fitting into TTA. So our first panelist is Lindsay Dwyer, who is the America's Early Careers Leader, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at EY. She has over a decade of experience in talent management, recruitment, and strategic planning, and she leads the development and execution of comprehensive diversity strategies in campus recruiting, overseeing recruitment of nearly 20,000 hires across the Americas. Our second panelist is Sarah Castro, Executive Director of Programs at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation, where she serves as Executive Director. She works on projects within the Foundation's workforce portfolio, dedicated to pursuing solutions that ensure learners and workers have the right skills and experience for the jobs of today and tomorrow. She manages several initiatives that are focused on employer-led partnerships and innovative financing. And third, we have Megan Perea, VP of Global Early Careers at Aon Services Corporation. She's in this role, she leads the team responsible for critical work aligned to Aon's global early careers initiatives, including apprenticeship, strategic HBCU partnership, and expansion of early careers programs into new markets and regions. So we'll be with you in just a moment, panelists. We're going to put up a quick Zoom poll. All right. So what I'm seeing on my screen is that among higher ed partners, experiential learning models that are most familiar include internships and co-ops, as well as capstone projects. Less familiar would be apprenticeships, job shadowing, and project-based learning, but pretty good awareness of the examples across the board. On the business side, we see a little bit more decisiveness that internships, co-ops, capstone projects, and project-based learning challenges are the types of models they're most familiar with. The higher ed partners perceive internships and project-based learning challenges as having the greatest value. And we see from the business side agreement that internships also bring a lot of value to the company, and sort of a tie between apprenticeship and capstone. And a lot of interest in the last question on making internships, co-ops, job shadowing, and project-based learning challenges a bigger piece of the puzzle for TTA. So that's all super interesting. And panelists, feel free to refer to those poll results if they're pertinent to your remarks later on. But just to get us started with the first question for Megan, Sarah, and Lindsay, let's go around, three of you, and just hear a little bit about your work generally, short overview, including what is the primary talent challenge that you're trying to solve. And let's start with Lindsay.
Hello, everybody. Nice to meet you all. Can you hear me okay? Okay, great. My name is Lindsay Dwyer, and as was said, I work for EY, and I am the leader of our DEI Early Careers Center of Excellence. And so our team works across our entire recruiting function for early careers, some experienced hiring and some executive hiring as well, to really ensure that our recruiters have a strong DE&I strategy and deploy that strategy on the campuses that we recruit at and with the organizations and partnerships that we recruit with as well. Biggest challenge for me is an easy one at the moment. So EY is, a professional services organization. If you're not familiar, one of the big four public accounting professional services organizations. And that means that certainly we have a large focus on tech talent, but we also have, extremely large focus on accounting talent. And frankly, the accounting talent is just drying up. Enrollment is down. And I know that many of you see that across universities as a whole and community colleges as a whole. That enrollment is down overall, but even more so into business schools and even more so into accounting programs. And so we are having to get really creative, as I believe that we always have, but whenever anyone asks me kind of what my day-to-day is focused on, it's really not so much even about EY, although everything that I do certainly, has that slant, but it's more about attracting talent to the profession overall. So getting out there very, very early, talking about the opportunities within professional services, why a accounting degree or a tech related degree or a finance related degree, what that could look like for you and how that can translate into a really fruitful career. I focus, as said, again, on our diverse populations, but certainly not limited to that. But we have even more of a pipeline issue within our diverse populations of students. And so that's really our biggest challenge and what I spend most of my time focused on. Did I answer all your questions?
You did. I have one
Okay.
follow-up question
Sure.
for you, which is to get at that challenge. What I noted from looking at information about internships at EY specifically is that you do try to connect with students early in their undergraduate experience and try to design an internship experience that sort of builds year over year. Can you
Yep.
talk a little bit more about that?
Yes, Candace, I would love to. So what Candace is referring to is our launch internship program is what it's called. If you're interested in looking it up, or I'm certainly happy to chat with anyone offline more about it. But it is a rotational or experiential type internship. It's fully paid. It paid at this almost the same level as our traditional internship program. But it's meant for freshmen and sophomores. So timing is dependent on whether they're pursuing a 4-year degree or again a 5-year degree if they were going the accounting route with the master's or the 150 credit hours. But for purposes of today, so for tech talent, it would be aimed towards freshman students. We really try to go to the schools that we recruit at. And again, I heard a lot mentioned in my breakout group about Handshake. So we certainly are all over Handshake, LinkedIn, all the platforms that we recruit on. And just cast a wide net. Just say, hey, if you're considering a business or tech related major, come check us out. And so we have two different things. One is this program called Expedition EY. So it's kind of the precursor to our launch internship. But some students do both and some do one or the other. It's not always a perfect science. But that program is a fully virtual gamified program where students just come in, there's an app, they work at their own pace. They get points to learn about our profession and to do different things, to hear from speakers, those sorts of things. And they can rack up those points to then win scholarships. So that's how we say, if you have no idea, if you're between an advertising major and a business major, like come hear from us and see why you might want to go this route. Then the next step is for them to then interview for our launch internship program, which is what Candace was referring to, where we have them over the entire summer, again, fully paid. They are sitting on client teams. So it's real work, real client work right alongside our second and third year interns. And they're rotating through our different areas of the business. So depending on their major and their profile, what their interests are, and what they'd be qualified for upon graduation, we kind of really, it's a puzzle, but we package together an internship that is interesting to them. And then at the end of the internship, we ask them their preferences, where they'd like to land within the business and match that up with the needs of our business, of course, and then invite them back for the following summer to be in an internship focused in that area of the business. This program is primarily targeted to racially and ethnically diverse students. While it's open to everyone, we do consider everyone. The goal and kind of our target demographic for this program is students who aren't generally as familiar with our profession and who are still considered underrepresented in the field of accounting and financial services.
Great, thank you so much. That was a
Sure.
great response. And we'll come back to the questions in the chat. Absolutely. But for now, I'm going to pass it over to Sarah. Same question. Tell us a little bit about your work and the primary talent challenge you're seeking to solve.
Great. Thanks, Candace. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having me today. My name is Sarah Castro. I am an executive director of programs at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation in Washington, D.C. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation, we are the nonprofit affiliate of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, which you may be familiar with as the largest business association in the world. It is a lobbying organization, Capitol Hill facing, a membership organization. And as I said, we are their nonprofit affiliate. So we don't do any lobbying, but what we do is we stand up initiatives that are of great importance to the business community. As you all know, just workforce is probably the number one issue for the business community. So the Chamber Foundation, really our biggest portfolio that we work on is focused on workforce. We have various programs within that portfolio, but our newest initiative, and the one I'm really here to talk to you guys about today, is an initiative called EPIC, which stands for Employer Provided Innovation Challenges. We feel really strongly at the Chamber Foundation that work-based learning experiences and project-based learning experiences are just a really powerful tool for students and learners. It really helps them with career preparedness, career awareness, and it really helps them prepare, for the jobs of the future, and really work with employers on real-world business challenges. I'll just quickly kind of give you an overview of how we're setting up EPIC, just so you kind of have a snapshot of what it looks like. I'll try to do it quickly, but I will note BHEF is one of our partners for EPIC. So kind of as you're listening to this, just know that BHEF is one of our partners. So what we're doing is we are standing up a network of really host organizations across the country. And another word that we're using for these host organizations is clearinghouses. So you might hear me use the host organization and clearinghouse interchangeably. But we have partnered with 9 organizations across the country who are really standing up these real world business challenges across, in their communities. So these host organizations are responsible for recruiting employer partners who will provide real world challenges, and then also recruiting education partners who will be providing the teams of students who will be working on these challenges. As we're setting it up now, each of the host organizations will be standing up 2 challenges per year. One challenge focused on high school students, and then another challenge focused on post-secondary students. One thing to note is these work-based learning opportunities or project-based learning opportunities, they're not internships. And our EPIC initiative is really focused on kind of more bite-sized projects. So we're looking at projects that are between 3 and 8 weeks. As I said, we think these are really important opportunities for learners, but unfortunately they just tend not to be available for underrepresented students. So making these opportunities a little bit shorter kind of makes them a little bit more accessible. And then I'll just make 2 other points about EPIC. One is that we're running this off a tech platform. We've partnered with an organization based in Vancouver called Ripen. So they're our tech partner, and they're really steeped in work-based learning. But each of our host organizations gets an EPIC portal on Ripen, and that's where the challenges are hosted. And it's where all communication between employers and students can take place. Presentations can be given, on this Ripen portal. Deliverables can be submitted on the portal. But it really takes away the need for place-based only projects. So it really allows, for example, students in rural communities who typically would not have access to this type of experience to be able to do a work-based learning experience with an employer. That's not to say that these are all virtual experiences. We are, very open to hybrid experiences or, in-person experiences, but this tech platform really kind of allows the flexibility for everyone. And then the other point I'll make about Epic is that we are credentialing, we've credentialed it. We've partnered with Credly, and every single learner who goes through an Epic challenge will receive a digital badge from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation. And really what that badge will represent is the soft skills that the students will have obtained by going through one of these experiences. The employers we're working with, are just a vast array of, size and types, industry, and the challenges are all really different. Some are PR challenges, some are IT challenges, but really the common thread throughout all these challenges is that those soft skills that the students will be getting. So that is Epic in a nutshell.
Thanks, Sarah. That was a great overview. And I think in describing Epic and how you're going about helping communities design these project-based learning challenges, you've sort of outlined the best practices for designing a project-based learning challenge. Are there any other best practices outside of what you've mentioned that you think would be valuable for the group to think about?
Yeah, so I think I would say, one thing we're very keen on is having these experiences be kind of authentically employer-led. We think if we can bring the employers to the table, and have them get interested in providing these types of opportunities for the learners in their community, that's a really big step forward in scaling it, and building those relationships between the employer and the education partner. The other thing that we're telling our employer partners who are designing these challenges is that the more authentic and messy the problem, the better. We think students really thrive off, real challenges that an employer is facing. And a lot of times as folks are designing these challenges, we almost encourage them to say less is more in the types of information that they're providing to the students, because then it's going to force the students to think about the information that they're missing and to think about going back to the employer and digging a little bit deeper into the issue. And, just not every problem at work is going to be, buttoned up and wrapped up with a bow and have everything you need to solve it. So that's what we're telling the employers as they design the challenge. And then the other point I'll make is we are working toward a model. Right now, our challengers are pretty much, one for high school and one for post-secondary students, but we're really working toward a model where teams can be comprised of different types of learners. So maybe some high school students mixed in with community college students, just because that's more representative of the workforce. I'm sure we all work on teams who are not necessarily filled with people who are, exactly like we are, in the same age and same experience levels. So that's just the other point we'll make, that we're really trying to look at designing teams that have a little bit more variety of people in it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It makes a lot of sense. Thanks for sharing it. And last but certainly not least, Megan, let's hear a little bit about your work at Aon and your key talent challenge.
Yeah, and I was excited to see the poll results on apprenticeship. So hopefully that can help provide some more guidance and understanding of it. But excited to be here. Megan Perilla, as Candace said, I lead our early career strategic work, specifically focused on, I would say the two areas here that make sense to talk about is apprenticeship in the US, both our own apprentice program, but then also growing apprenticeship in corporate organizations across the US. And our CEOs invested $30 million to grow apprenticeship to 10,000 in corporate roles by 2030. And then also our work we do with targeted diverse colleges, mostly HBCUs, but also other diverse colleges in that, and really bringing in is kind of like what Lindsay has going on at EY. And as a professional services firm, we are in the risk insurance industry. A lot of students don't know what that means. There are a lot of pathways in and different majors you can be in to get into the risk industry, which I think is one of the positives and great parts of it. But really helping students at some of these universities see a pathway there and doing some targeted partnership with colleges, whether it be bringing in risk curriculum into their business school, partnering with schools with actuarial science majors and things like that, as well as just broader kind of opportunity to diversify the talent pipeline, because kind of as EY has the same, the makeup of our industry has historically been lacking in, ethnically diverse women, so we continue to look at that opportunity at Aon and continue to grow our diverse talent pool. The other challenges, four-year degrees are wonderful and definitely have a pathway into so many companies. But in the last, 10 to 15 years, not by purpose, but we have limited access to so much great talent out there that just might not be able to afford, balance a four-year college education, while they could be really successful in our organization. And we know this because we have many great professionals sitting across the risk insurance industry at Aon that came in 20 years ago and they didn't have four-year college degrees. We've just created the requirement out of efficiency, partially with recruitment and that you had to have a four-year degree to get any role within our company. And that actually isn't true. And so the apprentice program really is a secondary pathway into our organization, opening our aperture to talent, much so that they don't have four-year degrees. And our program is really a true earn and learn model. We partner with community colleges in the cities where we have our apprenticeship program running. And our apprentices go to school and work at the same time as a cohort model. They work about 28 hours during the week at Aon and then go to class 12 credit hours. So think of that as 40. And we support them in that endeavor. And at the end, they receive both their associate's degree in a risk or insurance concentration, as well as a Department of Labor certificate of completing an apprenticeship program that's certified by the DOL. The ultimate goal and the passion where I sit behind this is my hope is that organizations will look at someone who's completed a Department of Labor certified apprenticeship program just as equal in ways to four-year degrees, so that a job degree, say you have a four-year college degree or you have an apprenticeship program, both are equatable as you've learned and grown your technical expertise and have the opportunity to have roles and careers for the future. And we really are impacting the underserved areas of our communities in which Aon is employing colleagues. And so we've seen a real amazing momentum and impact there in our economy. So yeah, that's the programs here.
Thanks, Megan. One follow-up question for you has to do with how you're looking at broadening access to jobs at Aon, using new pathways and training opportunities to bring in folks to the company, but also to support their personal and professional goals, whether that includes a bachelor's degree or not. Can you talk a little bit about how the company works to ensure that those pathways are navigable by either apprentices or other employees?
Yeah, so from an apprenticeship standpoint, I mean, we do have, a tuition reimbursement policy in that. So our apprentices may continue on to get their four-year degree as well and follow that pathway and utilize that. And, we continue to look at and ensuring our community college and the relationships with other universities and having articulation so students don't have to retake classes. The other thing is all of our early careers programs. So we have internships. We have what we call a launch program, but that's our four-year college hires, and they come in for a year-long program to develop them professionally, as well as our apprenticeship. And continuing, they all go through professional development, whether it's a year or 2 years, depending on the program, and then gaining access to mentors and also leaders. And every role we have coming in is tied to a longer term pathway and opportunity. It's not an ending job that they get to that job, especially apprentices. They aren't coming in and then stuck in a role that they can't continue on and grow within our organization.
Great. I'll ask the panelists just one more question for the sake of time, because I want you all to be able to ask your questions too. So Lindsay, Sarah, and Megan, perhaps slightly shorter answers, but can you tell us a bit more about the role that collaboration and business plays in the success of your initiatives? And what strategies do you all use or view as fostering meaningful collaboration? And Megan, we can start with you and we'll snake our way back.
Yeah, so I mean, I think there's a really important role here between corporations and the higher education institutions. As I said, we partner with 9 community colleges across the US, and the success we see with partnering with those community colleges, and then we have the 5 diverse colleges, really that true partnership relationship between our program manager or leader of our programs and the university, and really having authentic, open conversations and truthful, right? I recognize that there's a lot within schools of getting new ways of, whether it's, credits and new courses within a school, there's a lot of approvals and different ways you have to go about it in the higher education forum, and recognize it can take time. Sometimes we in corporate America want to move like light speed, and that just might not be feasible. And so balancing expectations across both parties and what is attainable. But I think it's like anything, open communication, talking through it, making sure speaking the same language, because things that we may say on the corporate side don't translate in higher education, and vice versa. And I think that is a critical piece. I see where we've had strong successes with our partners has been that relationship on the Aon business side and the college. And where we've seen breakdown is where maybe there wasn't clear communication or understanding or, that aligned to really make sure we could move the things we needed to do forward.
Great, thank you. Sarah.
Yeah, so I'll say something similar to what Megan said, and this actually touches on another initiative at the Chamber Foundation called Talent Pipeline Management. But really, I'll say we're always focused on solving the kind of conundrum that there are jobs without people and people without jobs. So obviously there's a disconnect there. There are so many open jobs in this country where businesses just can't fill the positions. And then there's so many job seekers who can't find jobs. So what we focus on is making sure that the communication between businesses, employers, and the education community is open and accurate. So we really focus on training the business community to communicate the skills, the competencies, those open jobs that they most need to fill, so that the community colleges in their community can be, training their students to fill those jobs. And then kind of everybody wins in that scenario. The company that's looking for jobs gets their positions filled, and the students that are graduating from those institutions have skills that will fill the jobs that need to be filled. So I would say keeping that line of communication open and helping the employers communicate the skills they need to the education community.
Thanks, Sarah. And Lindsay, what's your take on higher ed collaboration?
So we absolutely rely on our higher ed partners to, the sheer numbers that we hire, right? We absolutely rely on them. But sticking in the same theme, and I hate to do that because I wish I could offer something new and different, but it really is just, I heard Megan say, like, making sure we speak the same language, right? So a lot of times we're like, the speed and the language and the things, like, many of us in recruiting come from a higher ed background. So I think that can help. But if we don't, oftentimes I would say, like, corporations move a bit faster than universities, right? And so we have a pretty aggressive timeline and things like that we need our partners to understand, and then vice versa, we need to understand theirs. I would say, like, just one more specific point that we're grappling with at the moment. And Megan, we're gonna have to connect outside of here because it was like a light bulb moment when you were chatting that we have been trying to copy, frankly, Aon's model at College of Lake County because does that, yep. Yeah, so we've been trying to do that. And I think where we're getting stuck, and this is very specific to EY, but I'm sure other organizations have a similar challenge, is community college students specifically were learning, right? They want to work year round or they want to work on a semi-regular schedule. And our internship model is very much set up to be seasonal. And so it's not working. And so we're trying to change that and kind of meet in the middle. But we're having a hard time with some of our community college partners being able to kind of meet us halfway. And so I think it's not that they don't want to, it's just like student behaviors, right? Student preferences, those sorts of things. But I think until we can sort of until EY can flex a bit more, which we're trying desperately to do, until our community college partners can get students to think a bit differently about the longer term benefit to a seasonal internship and what that looks like for their full-time employment. Now, I fully understand that some students don't have that option, right? Like they need to work year round. And so we're trying to come up with creative solutions to that as well. But I think I keep thinking of it as like we need to change the soil to which we plant these seeds. And we've had a hard time getting there to make these programs work for community college students specifically.
Thanks for sharing that example. I'm sure it really resonates with many of the people in this room. So I'm going to stop with my questions and open the floor to our higher ed and business partners and TTA to raise their hand or just speak up with any questions or reflections that you might have. Phil.
Hi, thank you, Candace. I've had an experience over the years, and I've been in and out of industry and academia. And so a couple of weird experiences. One is one of our partners actually accelerated a lot of stuff we had for our program, but they did it by writing a very big check to the university first to quote, get their attention, unquote. So we were able to move some stuff through the program fairly quickly. But not saying you should write big checks or anything like that, but I think it's doable. It may take legislation, it may take donors, it may take whatever. But the other thing that concerns me, and I think this may be part of the solution to this big concern of mine, for years I've seen students who are working a lot and their performance is terrible in class because they're working a lot, and they're working a lot partially because of the funding or paying tuition and things like this. And, in fact, I often see what I would call bimodal curve, so the top part of the curve is kind of a typical curve. And then the bottom part is one where I normally would, in the ideal world, they'd all get Fs. Not that that's ideal, but you look at the performance and it's pretty poor, and you end up saying, well, this is really a D plus, and that's, kind of a C minus. And so I would love to find a solution along these lines of internships or apprenticeships or something where these students wouldn't say, hey, I've got to work 30 hours a week. And, that either makes their bachelor's degree last 7 years, which is, horrendous, or they try to do it in 4 years and their just performance is very poor, and the outcomes in the medium term are probably not ideal either once they get into industry. So I'd love to see something to plug that problem. It drives me nuts. I mean, I don't let things drive me nuts, but that's something that if I was one of those people who happen to let things drive me nuts, that would drive me nuts.
Well, so I think I followed most of it, Phil. I guess as we're in the Aon model and the apprenticeship, we've kind of figured it out, right? Our managers all know that our apprentices are doing work at school. And so our schedule is, Mondays and Wednesdays, they work full-time at Aon. Tuesdays and Thursdays, they leave early to go to class. And Fridays, they're off all day to go to class. So all their managers know that. Yep. The second thing I would flag to ensure success, and we have this model running in Chicago with a nonprofit organization named 1 Million Degrees. And they are both in the community colleges here in Chicago, but they also are a partner of ours. And they provide wraparound support to apprentices to ensure they can be successful across school, work, and themselves, because we all know life happens for all of us. And many of these students, the community college, if you look at regular community college students, the average it could take them a long time to complete it too, because they might work an hourly job and their company doesn't care that, hey, you can't come to work on Friday because you have a class at noon. And so I really do think if you're partnering with a community college, and that we have seen that success, right? Now we lean in, we get grades, we see that if a student or an apprentice isn't doing well in a class, we put them in an academic probation status. We make sure they're getting the support. We ensure their manager knows, and we kind of provide that fully through. And it is required that they get a C or better on all their classes to finish our apprentice program. So that's how we've kind of solved it in that realm, but I can see exactly what you're saying happening to students if they're trying to balance on their own school and work. The second thing I would say, and we haven't done it at Aon yet, but Zurich, which is also in the insurance industry, they've created a 4-year degree college apprenticeship. So the last 2 years, where they're doing students who are finishing their bachelor's degree in an apprenticeship model. They run their 2-year associate's degree program exactly like ours. So I have to assume they're running their bachelor's very similarly. And again, the business understanding and knowing that their apprentice is growing and learning both on the job and in school. And so that's a really important factor when companies are doing that.
Got it. Nice. Thanks.
Let's see if we can do one more quick question or reflection from the group before we have a wrap up. Does anybody have one?
Can I bring up one? It's not a quick one, but can I bring up my not quick question, Candace?
Of course.
So someone else could add one in, but I've seen this whole job market change in so many different ways in the last many years. And so now we're up to, and we just implemented Handshake at Quinnipiac, which is another job matching platform. What do the Chamber and Aon and EY, what is the effect of artificial intelligence going to be on this? Are we going to have an efficient matching process in the near future? And who's going to bring that to the fore?
I'll just jump in and say, and it's not something I work on closely, but I will just say that it's something that the foundation is working on, and I can get you more information. We run an initiative called the Jobs and Employment Data Exchange. And basically what that looks to do is to standardize the data that are in job postings, and also standardize the data that a student or learner kind of has about themselves and their own skills and competencies. And we like to think of it sort of as sort of airlines standardize what flights look like, and you can really easily compare, you can look at all these different websites and airlines, and the length of flights, how many stops a flight has, the cost of a flight, what airport it goes into, but the job market doesn't really have that. So we are working on that at the Chamber Foundation, and I can get you more information, but it's called JEDX, Jobs and Employment Data Exchange.
Thank you.
Sarah, I like that example. I've never heard it. I've never heard that analogy, but I will say, Frederick, it's something we talk about daily, but we haven't yet changed any of our systems to be AI leading, I would say. So we're working on it, but I'm not quite sure what it'll look like at the end of the day. Right now, it's still a bit manual.
Okay.
Megan's nodding her head as well, so I'll take that as a.
I mean, I think I think there's work that could be done within, like we do it with job postings, right? Making sure we're using those technology tools, right, to make sure we're not creating things that make people not apply for jobs that they don't fit in, right? I do I'm with Lindsay, like I think some of the debacles we ran into, like I said earlier, of cutting people out of accessing is because we use some of the technology. So I think we need to be really cognizant of ensuring any of those pieces put in, especially in the recruitment process, doesn't weed people out by proxy of then things that then limit people access, right? So I think it's really important to continue to look at and use it in the effective ways that it can make it more efficient, but not losing kind of the scale. And I think Lindsay, like she said, focuses on a lot of DEI. We're in that same space of like those pieces. And so we are really intentional in that space and making sure we're, having care and feeding in that area. So I think it's a good thing that we continue to watch and look at.
Very helpful. Thanks for that response. So, okay, it's 3:30. Let's give our panelists a nice virtual round of applause. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your insights. We really appreciate it. In terms of next steps for our grantees and partners, we hope that there were a few nuggets here that inspire you when it comes to building in an experiential learning component into your TTA program. If there are specific ideas that you have heard that you'd like our strategic thinking or brainstorming partnership on, please never hesitate to reach out, as you all know by this point. We're revising our calendar of events in terms of what community of practice meetings are coming up next. So be on the lookout for more information on that front. And please, as always, complete the post-meeting evaluation so we can get your feedback on how the community of practice meeting went and what topics you all want to dig into next time. And until then, hope you have a great weekend and fingers crossed for more spring weather and lots of sunshine. Thanks, everybody.